Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council Chambers, January 27th, 2014, 7 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Councilor Krasko? Councilor Clements?
Present.
Councilor Langevin?
Present.
Councilor Manna?
Present.
Councilor Marcucci?
Present.
Councilor Moriarty? Councilor Nicola? Councilor Peliquin?
Excused.
Councilor Vandal?
Excused.
7 here.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, January 6, 2014. Have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 4, under Councilor's Forum, there it is. There's a statement about Councilor Clements responded to Councilor Peliquin's question about introducing new material and stated it can be discussed as a topic, not as a debate. That's incorrect. It can be disseminated, because she was asking about being able to give people information. So you can disseminate the information as long as you don't discuss it or debate it amongst yourselves or amongst the quorum of the body. It would have to be discussed and debated up here at council, but certainly we can give each other information on a topic that we'd like to maybe be considered down the road, as long as we do not debate it. So I just want to make sure that we're clear, because it didn't come across that way.
All
Thank
set?
you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Seeing none, show of hands is fine. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4, subcommittee reports. A, general government. Councilor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A meeting of the General Government Subcommittee was held on Thursday, January 16th in the George Parent Community Room. In attendance were myself, Councilors Sean Moriarty, Citizen Member Mike Janes, Councilor Monique Manna, and Citizens Roger and Estelle Cowett. Citizen Member Holly Christo and Councilor Conrad Vandal were excused. I called the meeting to order at 7:03. Agenda item number 1, vote to accept the gift of lights valued at $1,911 and submit to council for ratification. A motion was made by Citizen Member Janes and seconded by Councilor Moriarty with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the gift of lights valued at $911. Chairwoman Nicola stated this is an enormously generous gift from the Clements family. This is one of the best gifts that she as a council member and town person has ever seen. For years, the light display on the common has been somewhat haphazard, and it appears that this gift of lights is something that the Clements family hopes to continue as time goes on. The other members of the subcommittee were also in agreement that this was a wonderful gift. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor, 3-0. Agenda item number 2. Vote to install a plaque by the base of the large fir tree closest to the gazebo as a tribute to Rudy DiGregorio for his tireless efforts during the holiday season. A motion was made by Citizen Member Janes and seconded by Councilor Moriarty with a favorable recommendation to install a plaque by the base of the large fir tree closest to the gazebo as a tribute to Rudy DiGregorio for his tireless efforts during the holiday season. I felt the need to recuse myself from this vote due to the fact that Mr. DiGregorio happens to be my father. Vote by a show of hands, 2 for, 1 abstain. Motion passes. Agenda item number 3. Final discussion regarding changes to the proposed sign bylaw and submit to council for a ratification for a first reading. Councilor Moriarty started the discussion with section 9-202-4. He added the word permanent in the third sentence, readings, quote, no sign shall be erected, altered, replaced, or relocated without a permit issued by the building inspector, end quote. He said that a sign can be called a sign even if it's just a poster, but he didn't feel that the building inspector had to spend his time signing off on flyers and windows, which would technically be signs. I said many of the definitions listed mentioned, quote, temporary signs. Councilor Moriarty thought it would be good to eradicate any vagueness or manipulation. A motion was made by Councilor Moriarty and seconded by Citizen Member Janes to insert the word permanent. The new sentence reads, quote, "No permanent sign shall be erected, altered, replaced, or relocated without a permit issued by the building inspector," end quote. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor, 3-0. Councilor Moriarty continued with Section 9-202-5A, number 1. He struck the phrase, quote, "with the exception of appropriate light during holiday seasons," end quote, and inserted the words, quote, "electronic message centers," end quote, in place of alternating open information time dash and/or temperature signs, end quote. He certainly isn't opposed to the phrase, "with the exception of appropriate light during holiday seasons." Just wanted to eliminate some of the clutter. He added an additional definition of miscellaneous exempt signs to include seasonal decorative signs and residential decorative signs are exempt from regulations, except they are subject to public safety. There's a lot here, and I'm going to ask, if I might, that we hold off on this discussion, only because this is not on the agenda tonight. I spoke with the manager's administrative assistant, and she didn't have time to go through all of the changes and list them and get them into our packet for this week. And they will be in the packet for the next council meeting. So if it would please the chair, I would like to hold off on this so that we can read this coinciding with those changes, if I might, because that's like a couple of weeks away and nobody's going to remember this. Do you have a problem with that, Mr. Chair?
No, that's fine.
Thank you. The whole thing is all about very well detailed minutes as to the meeting, and I will bring these back that next meeting. If I recommend that the rest of the council do the same, so you have this next to you as we go through it. A motion was made by Councilor Moriarty, seconded by Citizen Member Janes to adjourn the meeting. I adjourned the meeting at 8:25 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Justine French, recording clerk. I plan on putting together another meeting soon under general government to go over an informational meeting that was held with Casella, and that will be coming up soon. I don't have the meeting yet, so I'll have it posted. I also need to have another meeting regarding, not the sign bylaw, but we want to add a couple other things to the bylaws. One is the graffiti bylaw that has been introduced by Councilor Manna, and I believe there's something else too that I want to be able to tweak there. So that's going to be a separate meeting, but the next meeting will be the Casella meeting. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor, and I appreciate you moving forward with the Casella, contrary to the newspaper that we're having secret meetings. They were wrong. There is no secret meeting. The public will be very well aware if they want to come to that meeting. We have an open door policy, so there was no secret meeting. What there was a meet and greet with Mr. Reed. That's all there was. So if you're interested in the Casella issue, it will be a posted meeting, and you're welcome to attend. So I do thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
We will move on to B, DPW. I will have Counselor Carasso read those meeting minutes.
Yes, a meeting of the DPW Subcommittee was held on Tuesday, January 14th, 2014, in the Rice Conference Room. In attendance were Councilor Langevin, Subcommittee Member Councilor Peliquin, Citizen Members Mark Morin and Steve Lazo. Also in attendance were Acting Town Manager Robert Reed, DPW Heather Bakley, and Tom Cutler. Councilors Vandal and Carrasco were excused. Councilor Langevin called the meeting to order at 7:03. Agenda item number 1, vote to approve the agreement between the Town of Southbridge and Weston and Sampson in the amount of $29,400 for the redesign of the computer control system that operates our infrastructure, known as SCADA, and submit to Council for ratification. Ms. Blakely stated that they went out to bid for the SCADA system and received one bid. This system is out of date, old, and cannot be updated. When the SCADA system is down, it basically puts the plant out of commission. This request is for the redesigned system and will go out for bid for the system itself. They have spent $15,000 in the past 2 years to fix the program. A motion was made by Steve Lazo and seconded by Councilor Peliquin with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the agreement with Weston and Sampson in the amount of $29,400 for the redesign of the computer control system that operates our infrastructure known as SCADA and submit to council for ratification. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Other. Councilor Peliquin asked if she could get an answer to the procurement question she had asked Mr. Clark for. Councilor Langevin said she would get together with Ms. Blakely. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Peliquin and seconded by Steve Lazo. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Meeting was adjourned at 7:12 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. There was another meeting held on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014, in the Rice Conference Room. In attendance were Councilor Langevin, Councilor Marcucci, Subcommittee Member Councilor Carrasco. Also in attendance were Councilor Nicola, Councilor Manna, Councilor Moriarty, Acting Town Manager Robert Reed, and DPW Director Heather Blakely. Councilor Vandal was excused. Councilor Peliquin, Mark Moore, and Steve Lazo were absent. Councilor Langevin called the meeting to order at 6:17. Agenda item number 1, vote to approve expenditure of snow and ice removal in excess of available appropriations pursuant to MGL, Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D, and to submit to council for ratification. Ms. Blakely said that this is for the excess appropriation for snow and ice removal. $200,000 had been set aside in the stabilization fund for excess appropriations. Concerns were raised about unneeded sanding. Ms. Blakely said they would respond to requests for sanding if the PD calls and voices concerns. Due to the potential liability, the sanding trucks are sent out. A motion was made by Councilor Carrasco and seconded by Councilor Marcucci with a favorable recommendation to council to approve expenditure of snow and ice removal in excess of available appropriations pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31D, and submit to council for ratification. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 3-0. Agenda item number 2, vote to approve reallocation of budgeted capital funds for account 600.440.583.0.148151, fiscal year 2014 equipment capital within the fiscal year 2014 Sewer Enterprise Fund budget and to submit to council for ratification. Ms. Blakely said original sewer equipment capital budget had $25,000 for the purchase of lateral cutters for the collection system and updating the collection system TV cameras. The price to purchase and upgrade and repair is $49,248.41. A motion was made by Councilor Marcucci and seconded by Councilor Carrasco with a favorable recommendation to approve to council to approve reallocation of budgeted capital funds for account 600.440.583.0.0.14851 fiscal year 2014 equipment capital within the fiscal year 2014 Sewer Enterprise Fund budget and submit to council for ratification. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor, 3-0. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Moriarty and seconded by Councilor Carrasco. Vote by show of hands. All in favor, 3-0. Meeting was adjourned at 6:45 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera. There are no meetings scheduled at that time.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I was at that meeting and made two statements that I thought should reflect these minutes. For agenda item number 1, I did ask Ms. Blakely if they gave the opportunity to the DPW workers to go home early if there was a pending snowstorm that they knew about, and I asked her to look into that for me. And also I asked Ms. Blakely if the drivers with the CDL licenses are restricted to how many hours they drive during the day or the course of the week. I would like that to reflect these minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to C, Education and Human Resource. Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no minutes to report, but just for the councilors and general public, within the next week or two, we will schedule a joint meeting with the school department for appropriations. They've had an increase in their unemployment cost, and we need to address that, and some small ancillary town transfers for monies for different organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. D, Planning and Development. Councilor Clements.
There are no meeting minutes and no meetings scheduled at this time, although I have heard from Planning and Development that, from the Planning Department, excuse me, that we will be requiring some meetings very soon, so keep you posted.
Thank you, Councilor. E, Protection Person and Property. Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. The meeting of the Protection of Persons and Property Subcommittee was held on Wednesday, January 22nd in the George Parent Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Councilors Nicola Carrasco, and Citizen Member Jack Jovan. Also in attendance were Councilors Langevin and Manna, Acting Town Manager Reed, Police Chief Charette, Lieutenant Woodson, Aaron Tetlow, Leanne Tate, and Dolores Larochelle. Richard Nash was excused. I called the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. The first agenda item was to vote to approve the appointment of Aaron Tetlow of Southbridge as a full-time police officer and to submit to council for ratification. Chief Charette said Mr. Tetlow has been an auxiliary officer for 6 years, that he is also at the top of the list, and there is an opening for an officer. He recommends Mr. Tetlow for the open position. A motion was made by Councilor Nicola and seconded by Councilor Carrasco with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the appointment of Aaron Tetlow as a full-time police officer and to submit to council for ratification. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Agenda item number 2 was to vote to approve the appointment of the following 5 individuals to the Southbridge Auxiliary Police for a 3-year term to expire June 30, 2017, and to submit to council for ratification. They are Ryan Sweeney of Oxford, Javier Rivera, Jamie Opawal, and Christopher Ellis of all of Charlton, and Corey Rogowski of Barry. Chief Charette said that they try to have 30 auxiliary officers, but they currently have 22, and with these 5 new individuals, it would bring the total to 27, and he hopes to add at least 1 more this year. Motion was made by Mr. Jovan, seconded by Councilor Nicola, with a favorable recommendation to council to approve these appointments. Vote by a show of hands. It was all in favor, 4-0. Agenda item number 3 was vote to approve the purchase of a 2014 Ford Explorer from MHQ under Massachusetts State Police bid for $26,000 to replace a detective vehicle and to submit to council for ratification. Funding to be $15,000 from the State Law Enforcement Trust and $11,000 from free cash. Chief Charette said the figures in the original language were reversed and that it should be $11,000 from the State Law Enforcement Trust and $15,000 from free cash. Chief Charette said that with this purchase, no detective vehicle would be needed for the next 3 to 4 years. Chief Charette said there is a 2009 Chevy Impala that will be given in trade to fix a Ford 500 detective vehicle. Motion was made by Mr. Jovan and seconded by Councilor Carrasco with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the purchase of a 2014 Ford Explorer from MHQ under the Greater Boston Police Council bid for $26,000 to replace a detective vehicle and to submit to council for ratification. Funding to be $11,000 from the State Law Enforcement Trust and $15,000 from free cash, as well as the 2009 Chevy Impala being taken out of service. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Agenda item number 4, discuss proposed bylaw for medical marijuana, new Chapter 6, Section 500, as proposed in memo dated November 21st, 2013. Chief Charette stated this proposed amendment by the zoning bylaw is simply to identify and set a guideline as to locality for a medical marijuana treatment center. As this was just a discussion, there was no actual vote taken. Agenda item number 5, discuss 21D violation enforcement procedures and follow-up. Chief Charette described the different types of 21D violations and stated that if the tickets are not paid in the clerk's office, that they would go to the courts. He has discussed the possibility with the town tax collector of putting a lien on properties for some tickets. Agenda item number 6, discussion of motor vehicle nuisance complaints. I had noted that I had received a number of complaints and concerns regarding vehicle nuisances. Chief Charette stated that when he receives complaints, different techniques are used to address the concern. Concerns are recorded, logged, and addressed. And just as a side note, one thing that the chief had suggested is anybody who has concerns with these sort of issues should notify the police department, in particular with make and model, those sort of things, the time of day, where, those sort of things, so that they can keep their eye out and look for that. Chief Charette handed out information on the civilian dispatch position for council review and future discussion. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Nicola and seconded by Mr. Jovan. A vote by show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Meeting adjourned at 8:21 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. As noted, we will discuss the civilian dispatch position in the next few weeks with a PPP subcommittee meeting, and we will also be discussing some fire department issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nicole, you had a question?
Thank you. No, I just have a little bit of housekeeping, because if anybody were to look at this particular agenda item, it might confuse them a little. The vote was to approve the purchase of this item, and it stated here that the Ford Explorer was under the Mass State Police bid. That was how the vote began. It was clarified in the discussion that it was not coming from the Mass State Police bid. As Councilor Moriarty read at the end, it was actually the Greater Boston Police Council bid. So we should strike the Mass State Police bid, because that was not accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions? Moving on to F, Town Manager's Search Committee, Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, we held a meeting this past Thursday in the George Parent Room, the 22nd. We went over, we had 2 applications, 2 companies that are interested in trying to find a town manager for the town. By law, we need 3. And Mr. Reed kindly found another company this weekend that is interested. So now we have 3 companies, which we need by law to go out for an RFP for it to be posted. So we'll start that process very quickly. And we tentatively booked another meeting for this Thursday right here in the George Parent Room to review that. And that will be at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regard to the search committee search committee, which is considered a public body under the open meeting law, I know that Mr. Reed did have Yvonne call. However, we did spend this weekend at the MMA, and one of the seminars that a number of us attended, myself, Maddie Doust, Monique Manna, was specifically on the update for the open meeting law. And some of the public body and posting of meetings was spoken about at that particular seminar. And I personally asked the question to a very large body and the attorney representing the Attorney General's office and all in regard to our search committee. I asked, do the meetings have to be posted? Because they kept talking about the ability to go into executive session when it was actual discussion or interviewing of the candidates. And it was very clear at that meeting that any committee, commission, or group that has been formed by the public body, and in this case by yourself, Mr. Chair, in terms of doing public body business that will be reporting back to the public body, us, is considered to be under the auspices of the open meeting law. Therefore, your meeting needs to be posted, and at that point, people could go, but the ultimate end result would be that you will probably, I would assume, once you have names and all that, you would want to vote to go into executive session on the basis of negotiation, and you have to state your reasoning for going into open session, and you don't need to come back out if you say, just like we do, if you say that you're going to be adjourning in your executive session, then you don't have to come back out. So ultimately, what they told us also is that your committee would then finish up and bring at least the 2 names, if not more, to the public body for the final interview process and then the decision-making. But they were really clear about posting those meetings, and I don't want to see us in violation of anything, and I don't think it's that difficult to just get the meeting posted and then be able to do your business the way you need to do it beyond that. But they did explain to open the meeting, adjourn to executive session, do your business, and then to finish up. So bringing the information forward, just wanted to be clear how they explained it to many cities and towns, not just ours. So it was an open seminar, and that was their answer. Thank you.
Just in reference, we did too, so we're getting conflicting stories because that was one of our questions, saying, do we have to post this and stuff like that, because we want to do this the right way. By any means, we're not keeping secrets from anyone and stuff, but that was the direction they said, oh, no, we don't have to. I'm like, okay, we'll move forward. But so I appreciate your comments and bringing forward with us. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, might I point out, too, that the opinion that we received, and Yvonne Torres was very clear on that it was from the AG's office. So I guess like anything else, it's a matter of opinion. If it suits the
Section 20 of the
councilors.
open meeting law clearly states
I
public
understand, and
body.
thank you for your education this evening, Council. It was very enlightening. We will post the meetings. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Moving on to agenda number 5, Chairman's announcements. This evening, I just have really one public information. This past weekend, the res did open up. I talked to Mr. A.J. Larochelle. They spent a great deal of time. Of course, we're at the mercy of the weather on how that gets operated. So they've been checking the ice. The ice was thick enough. So they did open it. I asked them, and I asked the cable person, Mike Martini, to please post this on the Access channel. They will be open this Saturday and Sunday, weather permitting, from 1 to 4. There is a number, which the number is 764-4849. If they're not going to be there, they will leave a message, say due to the conditions and stuff. But they do have hockey on one side, and they have open skating. If you don't have skates, they have skates there. It's just a nice family event. So if you're looking for something to do and getting a little fresh air and exercise, go on down. That's it for my announcements tonight. I will go on to town manager's announcements. Mr. Reed.
I just have 2. One, as the council is, I'm sure, aware, the governor released his budget last week, and included in House 2 were preliminary local aid numbers, which the MMA has characterized as extremely disappointing, and I think I would echo that, particularly in relation to the numbers for Southbridge. Also, when you look at the increases that the town has seen over the last few years, particularly from 13 to 14, and also in regard to the increase in revenue the state has seen. So it's a sobering beginning to the budget process, which we have started. Departments have their budgets in, met with the accountant today to begin our projections for 15. We heard over the weekend at the MMA conference that the House intends to add money to the unrestricted general government aid line item, which was not zeroed out, but level funded in the governor's budget. So that's a hopeful sign, but we'll just have to wait and see if the House and the Senate are more generous with local aid than the governor is. The other announcement I have is from the Office of Economic Development and Planning about a hearing coming up on their community development block grant. The town of Southbridge will hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, January 28, 2014, and Thursday, January 30th, in the GAR Hall, lower level of the Town Hall, 41 Elm Street, Southbridge. The purpose of the hearing is to receive public input on the town's federal fiscal year 2014 Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant, mini entitlement program plan and application. Discussion will also include a review of target areas, future target areas, and ways to increase citizen participation. The town seeks comment from the public and all interested parties and encourages anyone wishing to provide input to be heard to attend the public hearing on the dates and time designated. Comments may also be submitted in writing to the Economic Development and Planning Office in the Southbridge Town Hall. All written comments received before 5:30 p.m. on the date of the public hearings will be read at the public hearing, and additional comments can be received by the Economic Development and Planning Office until Monday, February 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Moving on to agenda item number 7, swearing in and presentations. There is none at this time right now. I will go to agenda item number 8, Citizens Forum. Are there any citizens that would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda at this time? Anyone? Seeing none, I will move on. Number 9, vote to approve the appointment of Aaron Tetlow of the Southbridge as a full-time police officer. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Town Manager, Town Council Chairman, members of the council. Mr. Tetlow has been an auxiliary with us for about 7 years now. He's got an impeccable service record. Over the last 7 years, he's volunteered, if I was to guess, hundreds of hours for the community. He's been in our process a couple different occasions now. He now stands at the top of the list. I think he'd be a great addition to our department.
Just for public information, this is not a new position. This is a position that retirement or a position that someone left, this position's being filled. So just for public information. No discussion? Have a roll call, please.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci? Yes. Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
7 yes.
Motion passes. With that being said, I'm going to have our town clerk, Matty Dowse, swear him in.
Do you, Aaron Tetlow, solemnly swear to perform all duties incumbent of you as a member of the Southbridge Police Department faithfully and impartially according to laws of the Commonwealth and abide by the charter and bylaws of the town of Southbridge, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. I just need you to sign your name right there, please. Okay, I also have to give you the open meeting law and the conflict of interest, so if you would just sign your name right there. This is for you. This is your card.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These mics are on. Hello? Okay, you're live again. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10, vote to approve the appointment of the following 5 individuals to the Southbridge Auxiliary Police for a 3-year term effective immediately through expire June 30th, 2017. Christopher Ellis, Charlton, Mass. James Opewall, Charlton, Mass. Javi Rivera, Charlton, Mass. Corey Rogokowski, Charlton, Mass. And Ryan Sweetie. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Lieutenant?
If I could again. The 5 candidates before you have all completed a 242-hour basic reserve intermittent academy. They'll be purchasing all their own uniforms. They'll be required to do 8 hours of volunteer time at least a month. They'll be required to volunteer their time for 4th of July, road races around Memorial Day, night before Thanksgiving, all the big events that we have in the community. Currently, we have 24 auxiliaries. We try to maintain between 28 and 30. This would bring us to 29. I recommend all of them.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Nicola?
Thank you. I'd just like to say, knowing a little bit about the auxiliary and also in discussion the other night at the meeting, it takes a tremendous amount of commitment to become an auxiliary officer, and not without a tremendous amount of expense to them. With the exception of their weapon, they pay for everything themselves. And I'm very pleased and proud to be voting for all 5 of you. Thank you very much for your anticipated service. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Crosco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
7 yes.
Congratulations.
That's 40 more hours of volunteering. I like that.
Congratulations. I think they're a little nervous. Moving on to agenda item number 11, vote to approve the expenditures of snow and ice removal in excess of available appropriations pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or anything on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Crosco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 12, vote to approve the reallocation of budgeted capital funds for account number 600.40.5830.014851 for the FY 2014 equipment capital within the FY 2014 sewer enterprise fund budget. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
So moved, sorry.
We have a second. Did someone second that?
Motion, second.
That's what I thought. Any discussion on this? Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, I'm not sure, I listened to the minutes, and I understand reading our notes, what we have here for the reallocation. It's a reallocation of the sewer funds. I wasn't sure if it seemed clear during the reading of that minutes. It almost sounded like we were reallocating 25 to come up with 49 in the minutes, but that's not what it is. We've actually cut out, and we're not spending 49 at all, and we're reallocating the portion that we were planning on spending to begin with, correct? So I just want the public to realize that. It sounded in the minutes, even though I knew that wasn't it, that it sounded like that, so.
It's just a reallocation of the $25,000 that was budgeted. When we went out and did more research on the camera, it came in at $49,000. We didn't feel that that was a good use of town funds. We have reallocated it for other projects, smaller projects, to stay under that $25,000.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We're having problems with these mics going in and out. Could we try to take care of that, please?
I can hear you.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Crosco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passed. Agenda item number 13, vote to accept the gift of lights valued at $1,911 and submit to council for ratification. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I, for one, just want to thank the Clemens family. This is a very nice gesture and donation, so thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Abstain.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
6 yes, 1 abstain.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 14, vote to install a plaque by the base of a large fir tree closest to the gazebo, as a tribute to the Rudy DiGregorio for his tireless efforts during the holiday season. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on this?
I
Councilor
will be
Nicola.
abstaining from this, this vote, but I would like to thank those who are responsible for this on behalf of my father. It's very, very nice, and he greatly appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will say he works many, many, many hours behind the scenes to make our holidays bright and cheerful, and along with a lot of other people, and he definitely deserves a lot of kudo, and I hope in the future down the road we will also recognize him in a different way. But I fully support this. Any other discussion?
Just a
Councilor
question in
Clements.
regard to that. Will I need to come back to, you're approving the, putting it in, we're planning on just some type of a pole scenario to hold the plaque that's already made at the base of the tree. Going to work with a local vendor. Is that okay? Should I just contact the DPW, just make sure everything is good, dig safe kind of thing, all that? It should only have to be cemented in a short, it's just to uphold the pole. I mean, I'm assuming.
I think we're fine if you just go through the DPW and
Okay,
make
I
sure
just wanted to make
everything's
sure.
good, and we're fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola, I got your abstention. Okay. 6 yes, 1 abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 15, vote to ratify the agreement between the town of Southbridge and Weston and Sampson in the amount of $29,400 for the redesign of a computer control system that operates our infrastructure known as SCADA to submit to council for ratification. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Blakely? Could you just inform the public a little what this is really about so they get educated on this,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
See if this is on. Okay, this SCADA is actually an acronym, and we all call it SCADA, just so that we learn a new term. It's Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. And what it is a computer system, basically, that runs the water treatment plant. So it knows, based on different conditions that it's monitoring, when to operate the valves, when to turn the pumps on, when to do all of the procedures that make our plant operate. We obviously have operators that oversee this and watch this, but they manually couldn't turn these valves to the precision that is needed to operate our plant. So it is a very crucial piece of equipment. Our SCADA system, although when our plant was upgraded, we added to our SCADA, it wasn't updated. At this time, the equipment that is used to run the SCADA system, these controllers that they have, and this I/O system, this is inputs and outputs, are no longer supported by the company that makes them. So it's very crucial that we update the system. If our SCADA system goes down and cannot be repaired, as it was mentioned, we've spent $15,000 just getting it back up and running in the last 2 years, we won't be able to operate the plant, which is concerning. So we are looking to move forward with doing this upgrade to our SCADA system. We went out for bid, as it was said. We'll have it designed. We'll have it upgraded. The SCADA is basically as old as the original plant at this time. So as all of us know, computer systems go out of date very quickly. So we're talking 7-8 years already here. That's a computer system's out of date.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Nicola.
Thank you. Excuse me, I'm just curious as to where the funding for this is coming from. Do we know?
I can answer that if you'd like.
Certainly.
It's coming out of capital reserve, our capital reserve account for the engineering. We'll be looking at, when we actually have to go out to bid, we'll be looking at where we can get the source funding for that, whether it's our enterprise account or if we're going to budget it for next year.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blakely.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Blakely. Roll call, please.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, councilors. Motion passes. Number 16, vote to approve the purchase of a 2014 Ford Explorer from MHQ under the Greater Boston Police bid for $26,000 to replace a detective vehicle. The 2009 Chevy Impala will be removed from service and will be listed as a surplus vehicle. Funding is to be $11,000 from the State Law Enforcement Trust and $15,000 from the free cash. Do I have a motion?
So, second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, tonight I will not be in favor of this purchase. The police department has received their 2 new vehicles for the year of 2014. And I just wish we can hold off and add this vehicle to the purchasing of the 2 new vehicles they get next year. I think this is, I know the detectives need an SUV. I know it was a suggestion that was brought up during the audit, but there was an SUV that was purchased this year. But therefore, I will not be supporting this item this year, tonight. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Seeing,
agree here.
sorry. Councilor Manna, thank you.
I'd just like to make it clear that this was a favorable recommendation from the PPP subcommittee that Councilor Carrasco was on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
No.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
No.
5 yes, 2 no.
Motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Agenda item number 17, vote to approve the proposed bylaw changes as prepared by the Bylaw Review Committee and approved by the General Government Subcommittee meeting on November 25th, 2013. This will be the first reading. I will,
So move.
yep,
Second.
discussion. You're going to take this? I'm going to pass it over. Councilor Marcucci will read the
The reference sheet is to
Reference
highlight the
sheets.
changes that were recommended and approved in the General Government Subcommittee. On page 9, section 2-102, words should be, quote, unquote, registered, not qualified, and to remain as written. Page 13, section 2-801, dot 1, 4 members elected by the voters of Southbridge. That's 3-7-1, change to 3-6-1. Page 17, section 3-102, dot 1, change from 4-3-4 to 4-3-2. Section 3-104, general laws, change to mass general law. Page 19 and 20, section 3-204, change facilities management and construction committee to municipal building committee. Page 21, section 3-209, dot 2, quote, and enforcement, end quote, to remain. Page 44, section 6-101.3, K, parentheses, to read, quote, at the time of filing the application, each applicant shall pay the necessary fee to the town of Southbridge. See current fee schedule for fee amount, end quote. Section 6-101.4, added to the end, quote, an applicant requesting a renewal of a license must apply in person for such license renewal and provide such materials as required by the chief of police, end quote. Section 6-101.5, add, quote, see current fee schedule for deposit fee amount for each badge, end quote. Page 45, section 6-101.7, hours of operation change from 10 p.m. to or after the hours of 8 p.m. on any day except by appointment, end quote. Page 45, section 6-101.11, quote, remove, end quote, not exceeding $50, end quote. Section 59, section 701-4.2, change to read, quote, no person shall place any leaves, garden trimming, or other like substance upon any sidewalk or street in the town except in officially approved containers for the sole purpose of collection by employees or designated agents of the town during designated period of collection, end quote. Page 61, section 7-110, add, quote, or any individual car, end quote. Page 62, section 7-201, change to read, quote, a record of registration numbers of each vehicle so removed shall be kept. That also states the place to which it was removed, and within 12 hours, the police department shall notify the owner or his agent, end quote. Page 68, section 7-406, change to read, quote, no owner or agent of an owner of premises abutting upon brick, concrete, or other curbed or other finished sidewalk shall place or suffer to remain more than 24 hours upon cessation of the snowstorm, end quote. Page 69, section 7-501.1, youth protection curfew, stays as it is, but add at the end, quote, town council may invoke the youth protection curfew at their discretion. Page 76, section 7-503.4, add to, parentheses D, quote, refer to fee schedule, unquote, remove dollar amount. Page 77, section 7-504.2, remove administrative rules section and add the word, quote, reserved, unquote. Page 80, section 7-506, change prohibition of camping to, quote, camping fine, unquote. Page 82, section 7-504.4, penalties, remove, quote, see, unquote. Page 92, section 9-201.3, at the end of section, parentheses A, add, refer to fee schedule and remove dollar amounts. Page 97, regulation of signs. Note, sign bylaw changes are pending approval of town council. Page 101, section 10-101.1, change to read, quote, garbage or mixed garbage and rubbish shall be stored in receptacles with tight-fitting covers. Said receptacles and covers shall be made of metal or other durable rodent-proof material. Such containers shall not remain upon any sidewalk or street in the town from 12 noon the day prior to 12 noon the day following trash collection. End of quote. Section 10-101.2, wording change to read, quote, plastic bags shall be used to store garbage or mixed rubbish in garbage and receptacles with tight-fitting covers. No opaque or black plastic bags shall be used as a liner in a trash receptacle, unquote. Section 10-101.3, remove, quote, that contains 3 or more dwelling units, unquote. Section 10-102, remove, quote, that containers 3 or more dwelling units, unquote. Page 102, section 10-103.3, remove, quote, unit if the stairs, stairways, or landing are not used by another occupant, end quote. I'm sure that made sense to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Nicole, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Counselor, for reading all that. I know it's a pain. I just want to check on one thing, but before I do, I want to say that if you have looked online to see this, what you're seeing right now for the bylaws are the bylaws with the changes made by the Bylaw Review Committee, the recommendations by the Bylaw Review Committee. If these changes that were just read by the Vice Chair are approved by Council, this quote-unquote cheat sheet will also be included online and at the posted areas so that you can refer to this as well as what's changed for recommendations in the document itself. This kind of gives you a little bit of a help so that you can find where the council's recommendations came from. That's just one. The second thing I just want to bring up is if you go to the second page of this, Council, page 101, section 10-101.1, I think there's an error where it says garbage or mixed garbage and rubbish shall be stored in receptacles with tight-fitting covers. Said receptacles and covers shall be made of metal or other durable rodent-proof materials. Such containers shall not remain upon any sidewalk or street in the town from 12 noon the day prior to 12 noon the day following. I think it's supposed to read that such containers may remain upon any sidewalk or street in the town from 12 noon the day prior to 12 noon the day following trash collection. Isn't that correct? Wasn't that what we wanted?
It's wrong the way it is.
Yes. So I think you just want to strike shall not and put in there may remain upon any sidewalk or street. That was the change that we made. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
I don't know if we, is that?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else? Council Moriarty.
I just wanted to note that I wish that more residents and townspeople would come out to some of the subcommittee meetings, and I can't speak for the actual bylaw review committee as to how many people came out for those meetings, but I think I've got a pretty good guess. So I just wish there was more involvement that way because it's an important thing. I will, however, offer one, and I know some won't agree with that and be upset, but I would like to make a motion to strike section 10-101.2 altogether. Personally, anyways, it's something that I opposed when I ran, and it's something I still oppose, and that is the section that basically requires using the trash bags and requiring what colors we can or can't use as trash bags and all of those sorts of things. Like I said, I've been opposed to that. A lot of people I know are upset by that whole thing, and I've raised these concerns at the General Government Subcommittees, as did, I believe, Citizen Member Janes, possibly others. So I would like to offer that as a motion.
Second.
Councilor Clements.
Thanks. I was going to bring that section up also, having been with EHS and going over this for many years now, about 5. But my concern wasn't so much, I know the reasoning that our trash hauler and others have said no black bags because they cannot tell whether people are putting electronics or anything else in there, and it's very bad for us in our endeavors to recycle and to make sure that our landfill doesn't have wrong items in it. My concern was the word shall. I've been a believer that, and we were told also that it's not so much the issue of having your trash in a plastic bag in your tight-fitting container. And I know some people are using paper bags, or they're using some other or none at all. And plastic bags also, again, fill up our landfill, are very hard to degrade. So my concern would have just been plastic bags may be used to store the garbage. And I'm not opposed to the opaque thing. I still think the white, they told us they can see through them, or, you know, the yellow, white, a light color. The black is the biggest concern, especially the contractor-type black bags were the biggest concern because you can put pretty much anything in them and they'll go into the dump. So mine would have been just may, and that would be my suggestion, and maybe get rid of the opaque word also, but it's up for grabs with the council, I guess, at this point.
Any other discussion? Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to continuously debate this issue, but it is a recycling center. And, I mean, we've had curbside trash pickup for how many years now? And to be honest, the people, when they pick up the trash, they're not there looking at the bags to see what's in the bag before they throw it in the truck. They're there to pick it up, get through town as quickly as possible, to go up to the landfill, and from there be centered for recycling. So I'm in agreement with Councilor Moriarty. You know, I don't know how much investigation is really done by the gentlemen that pick up our trash on a daily basis, specifically looking for clear bags. I just don't know what if anything, they're looking at. Their main goal is to throw it in the truck and keep moving. Thank you.
Anyone else? Council Moriarty.
Just as a note as well, I think similar to some others, probably, I've witnessed the trash pickup in the past and recently even, and these guys, and I don't fault them or blame them by any means. It's not an easy job. It's not an entertaining job, and they are obviously on the clock to try and get through as quick as they can. And obviously they open up those things and just chuck them in and chuck the barrels back on the street. So that they're certainly not looking for that. I know that once they get to the landfill, they have spotters there that are looking through that as it goes through, which would be going on regardless of the color of your bag. Additionally, one of the big points of going through this to increase the recycling rates, which is obviously a great thing. We want people to recycle. But one of the big incentives there was that the town would receive greater funds from Casella, that if Southbridge's recycling rates reached a certain level, that the other towns who are sending their things into Southbridge, if their recycling rates were lower, there was a fiscal incentive for our town. That has not been utilized, enforced, and previous administration had indicated that there was a change in what the state monitored or how they rated these things, and therefore we had nothing to base this off of. We had no way of determining how much, say, an Auburn or Charlton was recycling. So therefore, our rates didn't mean anything because we had no rates for the other towns. So really, that incentive, outside of ecological concern and just anybody's own personal incentives there is no fiscal incentive for the town unless we are able to find a way to enforce that and bring in money that the town is owed under contract, and that has not been done. And again, as I stated, I just don't feel that it's the town's place to dictate what color bags individuals may or may not use. And in general, when I ran and since I've served, I've been in opposition to the town's trash bylaws and such. So I just want to state that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. My concern is with the contract. If you look at Exhibit H of the contract, Section 2.3, it simply states in here, refuse shall be placed in tied plastic bags. Plastic bags. So if we strike plastic bags out altogether, well, wouldn't we have to amend the contract, or would that section of the contract be null and void if our bylaw doesn't? I don't want to, I don't want anything, to go wrong, to happen. I mean, this is a contract, and I wasn't involved when this contract came about, but I know there was a lot of controversy on this contract, and I don't want to do anything we're not supposed to do. I guess that's what I'm saying. So I believe personally that if we take this out, we're going to be in conflict with this contract unless we amend the contract in one way. Thank you.
Councilman Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Councilor Manna, but it specifically says plastic bags, correct?
It says refuse shall be placed in tied plastic bags having a capacity of not less than 10 gallons or not more than 40 gallons, or weight when filled of not more than 50 pounds. Non-disposable barrel-type containers shall be plastic or metal, shall be equipped with handles, shall have a capacity of greater than 20 gallons and less than 35 gallons, and shall not exceed 50 pounds in weight when full. So if, exactly, I see what you're getting at. The contract's actually in conflict with our bylaw right now because it doesn't say clear plastic bags.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So it's in conflict, period. So something actually should be looked into. If the town manager could look into that, I would really appreciate that.
It's just not stating clear or yellow. It's a plastic garbage bag.
Thank you for pointing that out.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Nicola?
Thank you. I'm in agreement with remaining in sync with the contract, but the reason that I prefer to see at least plastic bags, you can certainly, if you want to strike that second sentence of what color the bag is, that's not a problem, because as stated earlier, these bags do go up on a belt, and they're opened and looked at and all of that sort of thing. My bigger concern for just throwing trash in a container and putting a lid on it is once those guys get to your house, open that lid and throw the trash in the truck and go down the street. Anybody who's done any kind of pickup or cleanup in this community has found a lot of trash around, and you just know that people aren't throwing trash around. It's trash that flies out of the back of these trucks. And if you think it's flying out of the back of these trucks now, you just go ahead and don't put anything in a plastic bag and just throw it inside of a container and put a lid on it, and it's going to be flying all over town when they start driving down the road. So, you know, I like the idea of a plastic bag. It doesn't have to be black, you know, you don't have to specify a color. I really don't care about that. But I think that for two reasons. One, the one that I just stated, and one, the fact that it's in the contract. I would not strike the first sentence, but I have no problem striking the second. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would have to say I absolutely agree with Councilor Nicola, what she just said. Personally, I don't care what color bag it is, clear, black, yellow, blue, whatever. I do believe it should be stored in a bag, plastic bag. So I guess, I mean, we're all over the place, kind of. I mean, we are with each other or not. I just need more of a direction of how we want to go. Councilor Moriarty has a motion on the floor to amend it. Could you read back that motion, please, just to make
The
sure?
motion was just simply to strike that section.
No. And we have a second. Any other discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Counselor Langevin?
No.
Counselor Manna?
No.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
No.
Counselor Crosco?
No.
Counselor Clemens?
No.
2 yes, 5 no.
5 noes. Okay, we'll start with this side first. Councilor Nicola.
With that said, and with what the discussion kind of went with, I'd like to make a motion to amend Section 10-101.2 wording, change to read, quote, "Plastic bags shall be used to store garbage or mixed rubbish and garbage in receptacles with tight-fitting covers," and strike the second sentence, "No opaque or black plastic bags shall be used as a liner in a trash receptacle."
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, councilors. That was painless. Councilor Moriarty.
Just a question through you.
You have to vote on it.
I know we have some representatives from the bylaw review committee, and just more or less, will you be back next reading as well, or are you just here for the first reading? Just as a curiosity.
We have to vote on it. We have to vote on it.
No, we were just here for this evening. We were requested to be here for the reading, so we came. Normally, I always thought that the first and second readings were bypassed, and the third reading was the one that, was the accepted one. So unless it's imperative that we be here, we would assume that our work would be done.
Then if I may, through the chair, to Chief Reporter or anyone else from the committee that may answer it, just one other point of contention that I didn't bring my material for it tonight, but your committee had discussed, and I do not recall off the top of my head if it was a formal proposal or if it was just mentioned as a note that you felt this way, that Section 7-501.1, as far as the youth protection curfew, the bylaw review committee seemed to have a great deal of concern with that particular bylaw and section, and feeling that it was inappropriate or should be struck down. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. We thought that at the time that the bylaw, being inclusive, that it's in effect all the time, is not really, I think, constitutional. You're saying that every night of the week, someone could say, oh, we're having a curfew tonight, where we felt that if there was a means or an incident that required to have a curfew, that the town council through the manager or the manager through the council, with consultation most likely with the police chief, would institute a curfew for a certain period of time. Not that it was just open-ended, always there. There's debate. That's our debate within our committee, how we felt about the curfew. And it's basically, as we've stated, these are our recommendations to council. It's council's purview to either accept or deny. But that was our feeling within the body, that just to say you have a curfew that, tomorrow night because you've got 10 kids on a block, someone decides to say it's a curfew, you got to go home, whatever, it just didn't sit right because of the word curfew. And I think a lot of us take as a curfew is that something really bad's happening and everybody's got to clear the streets, get out of town or whatever, some sort of a disaster or whatever. That's when a curfew should be instituted. But that's our opinion. And like I say, through your deliberations as the elected officials, it is your duty to either accept those recommendations or deny them.
And with that, then, I'd like to make a motion to strike Section 7-501.1.
Second.
Councilor Nicole.
Thank you. We did have the chief of police at that meeting, and he gave some compelling reasons as to why a curfew should at least be on the books. We being the members of the subcommittee, added the line, the sentence, the town council may invoke the youth protection curfew at their discretion, because we felt, based on what the chief had spoken about, was that while this doesn't have to be in effect at all times, that it should be on the books so that when the council, for whatever compelling reason, be it the chief of police or someone else come forward with some good reason as to why a curfew should go into effect, that the council would have the power to invoke the youth protection curfew. The fact that basically what we're saying is it is not in effect unless the council chooses to put it into effect. So it's not always in effect. But by removing it completely from the bylaws, then you have no proverbial leg to stand on if you choose to do so. Thank you.
I would agree with that. I thought the language that was added by the town council was appropriate for I would assume you would have to have a curfew bylaw within the bylaws. It's just that how is it enacted? And I think with that language, it kind of clarifies how it's enacted. So I don't have a problem with that.
Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. I would agree to an extent with Councilor Nicola's comments in that we did include, the subcommittee did include, I should say, that language that the town council may invoke the youth protection curfew at its discretion. My concern here is the previously existing text remains and indicates that a bylaw curfew is necessary And if, as I read this, even though it has a disclaimer at the end saying that the council may invoke this, the rest of the language indicates that it has already been invoked. Additionally, the other part that is a problem here, for me anyways, is while it states the town council may invoke the youth protection curfew at its discretion, it at no point limits or prohibits the length of such a curfew. It basically leaves it as an indefinite term. There is no revocation allowed for in this bylaw as written. So the way it's written states that the council may invoke the youth protection curfew at its discretion, that it's necessary, and those sorts of things, but it does not allow for a time period for this curfew to extend to. It's not we're not putting this curfew in effect for 90 days or for 1 year or what have you. It's left open-ended and indefinite, and again, there is no revocation authority in this, so that if and when the council decides that the violence, crimes, and gang activity is no longer increasing, and that the bylaws that a curfew is no longer necessary, the council has no leg to stand on in terms of taking that curfew off the books. And at the moment, I'll yield, I suppose. Thank you.
Councilor Nicole?
Might I suggest that we change the sentence to read, "The town council may invoke and remove the youth protection curfew at their discretion." That's just a suggestion. And that seems to cover it, But
You
you
all
do
set,
have a
Counselor?
motion, you still have a motion
Yeah,
on the floor.
yeah. You're all set right now?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to state that I am not going to support Councilor Moriarty's motion to remove this altogether for the simple fact that there needs to be something in place in our town. We have kids raising kids. Some parents just don't care. And when a police officer sees a child on the streets at 11 o'clock or beyond, they can pick them up and take them home. They're not arrested. There is no good with a child being out on the street that late at night. There's no good with a child being out on the street 10 o'clock at night without adult supervision. So with this curfew in place in our bylaws, gives our police department the backup to get those children off the streets, take them home where they belong, where they're safe, and not getting into trouble. And that's all I have to say. I'm not supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Carrasco?
Yeah, I just want to echo the words of Councilor Manna. By having such a curfew in place, we are allowing, giving the parents of these children that are being out there the free card. They got till 10:50 to be out in the streets, or 10. We need to strengthen our families, and I don't want to continue giving those that want to abuse our community a free card, a get-out-of-jail-free card to abuse this. And, if there is children out at this time, I agree with Councilor Manna, the police will do their job and bring them home. But at the same time, the major problem that we have to deal with is the parents and the guardians and those that are raising these children. And I agree in removing this, and I think we have to look at it as a whole, as a community. It's not something that we have control over to take a parent and educate, but I think we have to send a strong message across that, it is not our responsibility to keep your kids, take them home at 11 o'clock at night. Truthfully, if there is kids out at 11 o'clock at night, when the officer picks them up, call DCF, file a 51A. It is all of our responsibility. As public officials, we are mandated reporters. If you see abuse, if you see something going on, report it. Until these parents and guardians understand the responsibility and the gift that God has given them to be parents, they need to understand that. So I am also in favor of removing this in general. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Clements.
Thank you. It'd be an ideal world if all the parents actually did what they were supposed to, but that doesn't happen. My concern with Councilor Carrasco's suggestion or comments is that the police may pick up somebody after 11, a young person under 17, a minor, according to our definition, but without something in place for them to give them a little meat to do that, they run the risk of being called discriminating. They're discriminating against one particular child, one particular family, one particular ethnic group, that if they pick up that child to give them a ride home and make them off the street because it seems to be safe to do, they run the risk, if there's nothing backing them up that says they have the ability to do that, they run the risk of then being accused of worse. So I'm not in favor of removing it. I think if we're not going to keep it on the books as a regular perk to our town, to the citizens who care about their properties and stuff at 24 hours a day, then certainly invoking and removing at the discretion of the elected officials who see the best interests of the community. That's their job. I would support that amendment. I would not support amendment of removing it completely because I think it leaves us completely open and at risk to future problems that we may face as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. There are certainly comments that have been made I agree and disagree with. I think the one I disagree with most is a curfew being a perk. However, what I would say is statistically, and again, I didn't bring the data with me, and I apologize for that. I did bring it with me, however, to some of the subcommittee meetings where I had lobbied against some of this. Statistically speaking, the hours right after school, 3 to 6 p.m., are significantly, if I recall, it was 3 to 5 times more in those hours than it was at any other point during the day or through the rest of the entire 24-hour cycle of a day that you have juvenile crime. So it's just those first few hours after school when the kids are basically out of school, but mom and dad aren't home from work yet, being the issue, not so much the overnight hours. I agree that with Councilor Carrasco's comments that if you have a 10-year-old child that is out on Main Street at 11:30 tonight, a curfew is all well and good for that. However, ultimately what should be done is calling DCF because that child is definitely been placed in a dangerous situation. That should be child endangerment, not just a youth curfew sort of issue. Again, I don't feel that a youth curfew is similar to what former Chief Laporte had stated. Personally, I feel that this is unconstitutional. I don't agree with the curfew in that regard. In the event of situations we saw with the Boston Marathon bombing, that there were certain curfews and such put out, basically in order to protect people during an emergency situation. A long-standing indefinite curfew, which is what we have had since this was put into place, Southbridge may have, for better or worse, a number of issues and concerns. We may have our number of problems, urban problems, for our town, our city, whichever side of that coin you want to fall on. But I don't feel that the curfew is appropriate or necessary. So I stand with my original motion to strike. Thank you.
Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, just in response to the risk of our police department being held discriminatory in regards to picking up a child, that is unfortunately the profession that they're in. They make a motor vehicle stop, they're going to be said they're discriminating because of so-and-so. My biggest concern is I agree with Councilor Moriarty, what he said. The times of crimes for youth crimes are the hours from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. We need to educate our community, but we do not need to babysit them. And I think this is a way of babysitting by keeping this in our bylaws. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The way I agree with what everybody has said, but if you look, I'm looking at this very simplistically, is in the case of an emergency, I don't know, if we had a riot, or there was a flood, or a major fire, or something was happening that kids were staying out for and looking at and getting in the way of emergency vehicles or first responders, the people that like to watch, that the police department has the authority to say, we have a 10 o'clock curfew, and they'll keep it for how many days they need it until the issue is resolved. I don't think it's anything that's going to be long-term. We'll probably never, ever, hopefully, see that happen, but I just think it's a tool, it's a mechanism to quell anything that might happen and jeopardize the health and well-being of young children. That's the way that I look at this. I don't look at it any other way. We'll probably never, and hopefully never, have to use protection curfew, but that's the way that I'm reading this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Laporte?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think a lot of us know, like curfew, a few years back we had the tornado. If that would have been worse in town, I'm sure the town would have instituted a curfew to keep the people off the street, especially if power lines were down and various roadways were damaged and stuff. This is a youth curfew protection bylaw. Basically, I think if the police chief finds that we're starting to have a tick or a rise in vandalism and crime with the youth, that I would assume that the police chief would come before council and say, we're having an uptick in crime, certain, gangs are starting to come in. I would like to institute by council 30-day, 60-day, 90-day curfew so that we can try to get a handle on this, and then I can report back to you in 30, 60, or 90 days. And then at that point in time, if things seem to get back down to normal, then council at that point in time could say, well, we're removing the curfew. Things are getting better. And I understand if you don't have anything in the bylaws about the curfew for the kids, then you can't do anything in the future. It's done. It's here, and I think it's here to protect the youth and also to assist the police department in trying to get some of these kids off the street when it's necessary, not every night just because someone got up on the wrong side of the bed and all of a sudden we're starting to bring kids home. I don't think the police department should be parenting. And I think sometimes, speaking on my own, you can bring him home through the front door. By the time he gets back to his cruiser, he's out the back door, because that's the way it is. And I just think that the way it's written with that little part in the back, that the town council has the authority to institute a curfew, that it kind of binds that together for the town, in case it's ever needed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Nicola?
I'm all set right now.
You're
Thank
all
you.
set? Councilor Moriarty?
What I'd like to do then, I suppose as a compromise, is to amend my motion and basically strike for those of us that have the document, the black text, if you will, of 7-501.1, and just have that section read simply that the town council may invoke a youth protection curfew at their discretion for no more than 30 days from the date of enactment.
Looking for a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to clarify.
Yep.
So basically what this would do is it would give the council the authority to to implement a youth protection curfew at its discretion, presumably for similar to what Chief Laporte had just described, and it would do so. It would allow the council to do so for a period of up to 30 days from the date that it is so enacted. If the council needs at some point to extend that, they would have a separate vote to extend that another 30 days. But I think this way it allows for, in those instances, for something to be done without it being some sort of indefinite or problematic sort of thing infringing on the rights of the youth. And I think that would be a fair compromise. Thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Could you read that back, make sure she has, just to make sure we're all set, and then we can
So
vote?
section 7-501.1 would read simply, "The town council may invoke a youth protection curfew at their discretion for no more than 30 days from the date of enactment."
And I did have a second on that,
Yes, I did.
For the, sorry?
certainly.
Just for the record, I prefer Counselor Nicola's version,
Okay.
just for the record.
Any other discussion? Councilor Nicola.
Thank you. I also prefer I mean, if you want to remove the purpose and findings and the rhetoric that goes before it, that's one thing. But I would recommend 7-501, youth protection curfew. The town council may invoke or remove the youth protection curfew at their discretion. I'm not interested in an amount of days. I think that is totally enough, and that at some given, if the chief of police comes to the council and says, you know, X has occurred or something, whatever, for whatever reason, and at this point I would like the council to consider invoking the youth protection curfew, at that time, certainly, I think that we would ask for as much information from the chief as possible before the council votes on that, and it would be with certainly with some kind of a time frame in mind. I don't feel that a time frame is necessary as a part of the bylaw. I think that just invoking and removing the youth protection curfew, I mean, that's the most simplistic possible way you can do it, and I'm finding over the years, 9 of them as a matter of fact, that the more simplified the document, the easier it is to understand and the less likely there is for misinterpretation. So I think that by simply just stating the town council may invoke and remove the youth protection curfew at their discretion is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We will go and move forward on Councilor Moriarty's amendment first. We already had a second, so we will do a roll call on that.
Counselor Marcucci?
No.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
No.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
No.
Counselor Langevin?
Now,
Counselor Manna?
No.
2 yes, 5 no.
the amendment doesn't pass. I will look for,
Can I make the motion
certainly, Councilor.
that, where is it? Just got rid of it. Sorry. Section 7, thank you. 7.501.1, that we strike purpose and findings, all of the rhetoric prior to the one change. The town council may invoke and remove the youth protection curfew at their discretion.
Second. Do you have a second on that? Any discussion on that? Councilor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I will support Councilor Nicola's, but I would just like, for the record, to have it stated that I did like the bylaw its original way, and in no way did I think it was ever unconstitutional. And I did research on that, and no one has found this unconstitutional, although there are groups out there that are trying to look for it to be unconstitutional. And in no way do I think that a police officer can call DCF on a child that's out on the street at 11:30 at night if we don't have some sort of bylaw in place, especially if a child is not doing anything wrong. So, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, councilors. Now we have to vote on the agenda item number 17. Vote to approve the proposed bylaw changes as prepared by the Bylaw Review Committee and approve at General Government Subcommittee meeting on November 25th, 2013. And we had a motion, we had a second, so could I have a roll call, please?
Counsel Nicola?
Yes.
Counsel Crosco?
Yes.
Counsel Clemens?
Yes.
Counsel Langevin?
Yes.
Counsel Manna?
Yes.
Counsel Marcucci?
Yes.
Counsel Moriarty?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. And I need a motion from councilors, please. It must have been typo, but we can call it 17B. It'll be councilors forum.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Show of hands is sufficient. 17B, councilors forum. I will start with Councilor, we'll go on the side, Councilor Carrasco.
I just have one thing, like Councilor Moriarty stated earlier, a lot of what you see here is done during our subcommittees. So we would like to see the involvement of the public. Lately, there's been a lot of negative press about our town, and I truly believe that there are a lot of individuals in this town that are trying to do their best to move this town forward. Anybody can find a speck in somebody, a problem. Anybody can highlight a problem, but if you don't get involved, if you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't talk. You shouldn't make statements. Come out to our meetings. Come out, get involved. We do have a citizens forum. Don't get involved in the negative chatter. Don't get involved in the blogging. Don't get involved in the newspapers. Don't get involved in none of that, the Facebooks and stuff like that. Let's make Southbridge home. Let's make Southbridge a better place. Let's unite as a community. Let's not try to beat each other up on negative issues. Instead of, let's highlight some of the positive thing that's going on in this town. We had a great, I want to thank Councilor Moriarty for the great chili cook-off fundraiser that he put together for the American Cancer Society. Believe it or not, I have a close friend that's going through, he's in his 4th round of chemo. So, this is a deadly disease. And if we join together and promote those kind of things, we have our bicentennial coming up. We've been crying to the public to get involved with their logo and get involved in different meetings. There's a lot of good things happening in Southbridge, and if there is any newspaper people here or watching, you know what, let's highlight some of the good things that are happening in this town, and let's get rid of some of this negative stuff. We all have issues, we all have problems, but, when it comes down to it, we want Southbridge to be better. We want Southbridge to be the best place for our kids, for our residents, for our employees, for the businesses. If we continue to just brag about the negative, we ain't gonna attract anybody. We're not gonna attract a good town manager. We're not gonna keep kids in our district, Let's unite. Let's work together to fix our problems. Let's unite to work together to fix our school district, to fix our businesses, to get businesses here. It takes, all of us have to be united to do this. It doesn't, just because we're public officials and we got positions, it doesn't mean that we're not doing our best intentions. We're doing them. And honestly, I'm really tired of the negative press. I know that they have to do it. I know this is something that they live for. But in reality, come see us when there's something good going on. Brag about Southbridge, when we have some good things happening. Because we have a lot going on in Southbridge that is not negative. We have working families, we have working people, we have a town government that dedicates hours, not minutes, hours, days. Each and every one of us up here dedicating hours. We're not getting paid, and this is not something that I'm bragging about or anything. No, we have hardworking people that are trying to push this town forward. And on both sides, I believe the school department's doing the same thing. So let's focus on some of the good that's happening in this town, because there's a lot of good things happening. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Moriarty?
Thank you. So I have a few good things
Thank
for
you.
us.
Thank you.
One is, and I saw he was in the audience tonight, This was actually something that was in one of the local papers as a good thing, fortunately. And I just wanted to kind of offer some public support and see if people would be, that may not be aware, could offer their support as well. John Dufresne has been kind of putting together his idea, his concept, which actually coincides with our master plan discussions that have gone on about building a dog park in town. So I just wanted to kind of congratulate John on doing a great deal of work. I heard about it through the Southbridge paper, and I've had a little bit of contact with him, kind of offering my support on that, and that's something that I think if there are people out there that have ideas, thoughts, experience with that, or can otherwise help make that a reality, by all means, please come forward, whether it's John or to Sandy Ackley. I would assume being the most appropriate person for that. So there are a lot of good ideas with that, and it would be a nice positive for the town. Additionally, just in terms of the bicentennial, just as a quick kind of update of sorts, you may or may not be aware that the Bicentennial Committee has had a logo contest that's ongoing, trying to come up with a logo for the town's bicentennial, which is rapidly approaching in 2016, February of 2016. The logo contest, the voting period runs through the end of the month, so those who have not taken part, by all means, please log on to facebook.com/Southbridge200, the number 200, and offer your support to the logos that are there that you prefer. There are 31 logos, most of them done by local students that are there, and one of those will be chosen as the primary logo for the bicentennial to be on the shirts and all the promotional type of things, and that would be great. And there's some really, really stellar entries in there. And just as a plug for some upcoming bicentennial meetings anyways, that I would love to see people come out to, February 5th, which is a Wednesday, at 7 o'clock downstairs in what they call the Veterans Room, across from the clerk's office, the old assessor's office, will be the bicentennial special events meetings. As counselors, all of us attend far more meetings than we'd like to. I'm sure Mr. Reed's in the same boat. We attend a lot of meetings, and I know for myself, I leave a lot of meetings scratching my head or banging my head against the wall. What I can say is with the bicentennial in general, but especially that special events meeting, there are no politics involved, which is fantastic. It's a nice rarity in anything, and the special events in particular, I leave those meetings every time giddy, like a 10-year-old girl, which is really probably not the appropriate thing for me to use. It's not the most helpful, is it?
What does that look like? We want to see what does that look like?
I'm sure you can find it on the blogs.
Oh,
So on February 5th is the next bicentennial special events meeting, which again, the discussions we've had at the next meeting, we're going to be talking about the parade route. They're really great. Jim O'Brien, as the chair of that committee, does a great job, and we'd love to see more input because the committee is trying to make this be the biggest thing that it can do. And a lot of people may remember the Sesquicentennial Parade of 1966, the 150th, and there are a lot of people that were around for that still talk with great reverence about that parade and that sort of thing, and we're looking to, we're hopefully matching it, but really we want to exceed that and kind of make something big for the town, something positive for the town that 50 years from now people will still look back at and kind of, wave their cane in the air and say those were the good days. And lastly, just the next regular meeting of the Bicentennial Committee, the full committee, would be Wednesday, February 19th at 7 p.m., also in that Veterans Room. Generally speaking, the Bicentennial Committee meets the third Wednesday of each month, and all meetings obviously are open to the public. They're posted and that sort of thing. And the Bicentennial Committee is looking for anyone and everyone with an interest to come forward and really celebrate Southbridge's birthday appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to report that this past weekend was the Mass Municipal Association Convention and Trade Show in Boston, and I attended the conference with Councilors Manna and Clements, And the police chief was there, and our town clerk, Matty Doust, was there, along with our interim manager, Mr. Reed. It was a very well-attended event. We had an opportunity to see the 8 candidates running for our Mass governor, and they all went through a question and answer period and had an opportunity to see who they were and what they stood for. The event was, as always, a lot of information. We attended quite a few of the workshops, as Councilor Clements mentioned, one of which was the open meeting law workshop, which always has new things that they add. It was a great weekend, and I want to thank the town for underwriting this, because it is the only, and I will use the term perk, that we as councilors actually can put a finger on. And I've taken advantage of it for all 9 years that I've been on council. I really feel that councilors should try to attend at least 1 or 2 of these during their tenure, because they are very, very informative, and it gives you an opportunity to network with other communities, other people from other communities, our peers, and learn and adopt and maybe poach a few ideas from them. It's a great thing. And with that said, I also want to echo what Councilor Carrasco said. He couldn't have put it better. This is a community that is comprised of people from all over. I tell people all the time that Southbridge is like a mini United Nations, and everybody has always been welcome here. It would be very nice for everybody that has always been welcome here to give back a little to their community and become more involved. It's not just about 9 councilors. It's about the community. We are here to represent you, but if you don't give us any direction, and oftentimes you do not, it makes it a little difficult. The only direction we tend to get is when we do something wrong, and that's not fair. So I do echo what you said. People need to start concentrating more on the positives that Southbridge has, and there are a lot of positives that get lost amongst all the negatives and the foolish, childish stuff that goes on blogs and other avenues that I just hear about because I don't lower myself to that. I don't ever and won't ever look at any of that stuff. It's a waste of my time. That's really all I have tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, first, I'd like to welcome Mr. Reed to your very first meeting, and I look forward to many more over the next 6 months with you. And also, Councilor Nicola mentioned the MMA out in Boston over the weekend, and another one of the seminars that I attended along with my fellow councilors was Civility in City Hall. And it was interesting. They touched on bullying in City Hall within the workplace, and they have policies set in place. But one thing they did touch on was citizen policies for their town hall and how citizens should also act. And I didn't know if we had anything in place for our town hall, and if you could look into that, I would greatly appreciate it. I would also like to thank Rudy DiGregorio. He was on the agenda tonight for the plaque, and he does a wonderful job year after year. And over the last 5 years, we don't know what we're going to get, and every year it's something different, and it's even grander than the year before. So a huge thank you to Rudy, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Clements.
Thank you. 2 things. One, I had gotten a call from a citizen, and since the town hall may get a few of these phone calls, I gave a heads up already to our new manager in regard to cable bills. Apparently, there's a new fee on our cable bills called the broadband fee or something to that note. It's approximately $3.50, and we're being asked what this fee is. When this person called cable, they were told it's a pass-through fee from those channels that are on cable. It's coming by the government, allowing them to charge this fee to Charter, who then charges it to us. So I have asked Mr. Reed to look into our contract, which we have negotiated, just to see if he can find out anything about this, to answer any of those questions that may come up. Usually at some point, citizens start to come to the podium, or they call the office and say, hey, what's going on with the charter? Why is my bill going up? So while there may be a modest increase of $1 here or there, why did I get this $3? Why is this new fee on my bill when it wasn't on my bill last month? So I have asked him to look into that, and he said he would. And so hold your phone calls and your questions until we can get some sort of answer back. Maybe it won't be what we want to hear, but at least we'll be ahead of the curve on this particular question. So I appreciate the phone call and look forward to finding out why I have a new fee on my bill also. The only other thing I have is through Councilor Moriarty, you mentioned the logo contest on Facebook, but Facebook isn't something that I personally do, and it's not something a lot of people do internet-wise. Is there another way to vote on your logo? Is another place to see these logos?
Unfortunately, there is not, and this is due to a number of, the committee had discussed this in numerous ways, and in order to eliminate the possibility of certain online polls where you can log in from your laptop, your PC, your work PC, and your phone, et cetera, and, or even just from the same computer, voting numerous times. This way, through the like button, was the only way to, or the most efficient way, with also kind of ensuring that we didn't have, I guess for lack of a better term, voter fraud. In order, you can see who voted for what, et cetera, and again, it was just an expedient way.
So would there not have been a way perhaps to have them on display at the library or something? There's a lot of people, we argued this point with the registry issue, in terms of people not having access. Not everybody can afford internet or can get out there or have the technology to do that. Was there any other way to get other citizens involved, especially I think of the seniors? I know a lot of them are they're tech savvy, they're learning a lot more than we've probably learned, but there's still a large population, I think, that are not able to participate, and I would hate to see that happen. If there was any way that they could be on display at the library or in the town hall, and they could take a paper ballot even, or just, I don't know. I'm just suggesting it only to be inclusive of the majority of the community, and making sure that they have access to participating in such a great event. I appreciate your help with that. Thank you. And I think that's it. Great.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Marcucci?
That's it this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 18, discussion on the next meeting date. Councilor Marcucci.
That will be Monday, February 10th, 7 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Thank you. And it's a typo, it's 19, adjournment. Look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, show of hands, sufficient. Thank you. Everyone have a good night.